Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from Australia, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Dave Jackson, and this film is called Cat Sick Blues. So Cat Sick Blues is about two people who are grieving the loss of their pet, their cats. And so you've got this woman who is a YouTube star. The reason why she is such a YouTube star is that she had a cat named Imelda. Imelda was raking in a lot of views and subsequently a lot of money for this woman. So one day she's greeted by a crazed fan who goes inside a house. He meets Imelda, but one thing leads to another and it causes the death of Imelda. Not only the death of Imelda, but this fan actually rapes this woman as well. So she's devastated by this. She's lost. She doesn't know what to do. She has to reevaluate everything in her life. And then she gets a pamphlet that tells her about a support group that specialise in people who have lost their pets. And so she thinks that this is the best way to get over Imelda's death. So she goes there, she meets the people there, and she is captivated by one person in particular named Ted. Now Ted is mourning mourning the death of his cat, and he is finding it a lot harder to cope than she is. So what he does to actually try and get closure on this is he wants to go out there and murder 9 people. And so cats have 9 lives, and he believes that if he can murder 9 people, he can bring the life of his cat back. And so this is what he does, unbeknownst to this woman. And so the closer she gets and the more stronger this friendship gets, the more she starts to believe, okay, maybe this guy is this serial killer that is going around town wearing a cat mask and wearing a cat 12-inch dildo. And so he's very brutal in what he does, but by the time she realises that she might be in danger, it might already be too late as this man sets his sights on her. So whether or not that is the case, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Cat Sick Blues. Be very, very careful coming into this film. As I said in the description, it's about a man who wears a cat mask and a 12-inch cat dildo, which has a lot of barbed edges. And let me tell you, he does some things with this cat dildo that really defy belief. And I really wasn't prepared for how far this director would go in the levels of depravity that are shown on Cat Sick Blues. So I was very excited to see this movie. After the trailer, I thought it looked very bizarre, and it is an incredibly bizarre film. But I actually had my skepticism coming into it thinking that it was going to be a shocking film for the sake of being shocking, is that a lot of films bank themselves on gore fest. They bank themselves on the shocking material as opposed to a story. And this is the curse of low budget, is that they think if they can make something that is going to splat on the screen, it's going to be memorable, but they don't have the competency to actually make a film with a good script. And so all of those skepticisms were blown out of the water very early on, and I was very surprised to see that Cat Sick Blues actually does have a very damning criticism, not only of social commentary, but how we treat rape victims. And so I thought that was very good, is that it actually feels like this movie has so much more of a purpose than a straight out gore fest and a straight out demonstration in brutality. And yes, the brutality is very overriding at times, but I thought the movie had that purpose. It had a reason for what it was trying to do. Now this is a very exaggerated film. It's a very misogynistic film. This is a director who is making movies for the right reasons. He's not making movies to flog a dead cash cow in the paranormal activity sort of arena that basically appeal to the masses in order to generate millions. I think that having a low budget horror film really works in its favours because it's really directed at a specific audience, and the specific audience is a horror audience. And when a director has a lot of basic respect for the horror viewer, I think that actually it goes through a lot better and actually gives you hope that these directors, these horror lovers actually exist, is that they're not making movies just for the sake of money. And I think Cat Sick Blues is a perfect indication of a director doing it for the right reasons. This is a very misogynistic film. It's an incredibly offensive film, but it's very unapologetic. This is a movie that does take you back to the days of Australian exploitation in the 70s and 80s, where they made shocking material, but they weren't concerned about it. Is that, yes, they knew that a lot of people are going to be upset by this. A lot of people are going to really hate this style of film, but they don't care, is that they're making the movie directed at these specific fans. And so they're making it for the right reasons. I think Cat Sick Blues is a very promising indication that the exploitation of Australian cinema is actually being revived, and that there are a few other films that have done this, and that is why I'm very excited. And so Cat Sick Blues, as I said, all my skepticisms, all my hesitations were very much thrown out the window very early. For a low budget horror film, I thought that the cinematography was excellent, very surreal, very dreamlike. There are some incredibly bizarre moments that make you feel incredibly uneasy. There's some very, very graphic violence. There's a lot of throat slitting, there's a lot of decapitations, there's a lot of face bashings, and so this movie really does go for the jugular. This is a movie that hits you over the head with a sledgehammer as opposed to just tapping you on the shoulder. This is a movie that is at MA15+, and I think that's the reason why I was so shocked at how far this movie went, is that the MA15 rating shows you how contradictory and how inconsistent the Australian Classification Board is because this movie is a lot worse than a lot of R18 horror films going out there in Australia at the moment. So not only, as I said, you have this really hard-hitting violence, but you also got the social commentary about how out of control social media is, in that stuff that we deem as absolutely traumatic, whether it's someone's jumped out of a building or fallen to their death, or someone's got raped, they splash it on the screen. And it's very scary to see how many people actually watch this. And because we've been so desensitized to violence in this world, we can't differentiate what we're actually seeing on screen as opposed to reality. And so this movie really does show that. And I think it was exaggerated a little bit too much, but I actually thought the exaggeration does play into it a little bit more than I first anticipated, is because it is basically showing you the power of social media, and it's also showing you the power of a rape victim. In that, in this case, this woman, she's been raped, but she always feels like it's her fault, and that she feels that the whole world is against her. No one's got compassion for her. Everyone, as I said, is very misogynistic. Every victim in this film is a female. It feels like it's man versus female, and the female are being dominated. But this, I think, is giving you the mentality of a rape victim, is that some people don't go to court when they're being raped because they feel that they're going to be the ones that are judged. And so that is very traumatic. It's very heartbreaking, very depressing. That's the world we live in. I think this movie does a good job at actually that social commentary on what an actual rape victim would feel, and that they feel like everyone is against them. So although the movie is exaggerated to that point of being offensive, I still thought it was important in what it was trying to do. So it does have that platform that does keep it from being a film just to be a violent film, and I think that Dave Jackson has created something that is incredibly memorable. The killer is incredibly memorable, played very well by Matthew C. Vaughn. You've got that man who is torn up inside. You feel that his past, it doesn't give you an insight into his past so much, but you feel that he's had a very, very troubled past. But you also feel that love between human and cat, and you've got this woman who had lost her cat as well, and you feel the power of that, in that some people dismiss these cats as just being an animal, but other people actually get a lot of love for them, and it shows you the traumatic sort of consequences that a loss of a pet can actually bring. And so I really like that. And so on top of that, as I said, you've got this really ghastly sort of element of visual violence, visual sexual violence, and as I said, misogyny done to a level where it feels like it's a little bit exaggerated to the point of taking me out of the realms of reality just a touch. And that was my only criticism of the film, is that I thought it was just a little bit too force-fed. It was hitting you too hard. But having said that, it does have that exploitation feel that a lot of films out there try to emulate but are missing. So I think the low budget really works in its favour. This is an incredibly extreme film, so if it seems like something that you'd be into, go out there and check it out. It really surprised me, and as a result of that, I'm going to give Cat Sick Blues 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, you're watching movies, and I'll see you later.